Welcome to From the Bookshelf, the video series here on Studio 219, where I talk about books that I'm reading and occasionally talk about books that I am collecting. At one point last year, I made a video talking about my antique Christian literature book collection that I have been starting to build over the past year and a half, 2 years. And the video seemed to be, for my channel standards, seemed to be pretty popular. So I'm here today to talk about, I have picked up two more books since the last time I've made that video and the end of 2025. So I'm here today to talk briefly about these two. If you haven't seen that video and you want to see some of the highlights from my collection so far, then I will put a link to it at the end of this video so you can click through and check that out. Um, and obviously, if you're new here to the channel, please hit that subscribe button so you can see other fun faith and pop culture kind of videos here on the channel. Real quick, I will say these two things if you haven't seen that first video yet. Number one, I love to collect. I have a whole other video series here on the channel called Going Collecting, where I talk about more geeky stuff that I'm collecting. I love to collect stuff. And for me, it's more so the thrill of the hunt versus return on investment. Two of the things I do collect are comic books and Pokemon cards, and those are two areas that obviously you can start spending a ton of money, and there's a ton of emphasis on investment and all of that, and that's just not for me. No shade towards anyone who does collect that way. That's just not how I collect things. I do have some valuable comic books in my collection. I don't really have anything valuable by way of Pokemon. I do have some valuable comic books, but the reason why I don't really collect towards investment and all of that is because just financially, that's not something I can really do right now. However, this is part of the reason why I collect antique Christian literature. I do love how old books look. A big part of this collection is just the fact that it looks awesome on my bookcase. And so I keep picking ones up just to kind of add to the aesthetic. But so far for me, it's been something that's been very low threshold financially to get into. Obviously, I'm not trying to get old artifacts written by Martin Luther or anything like that. I'm just trying to get, older books that look cool in my collection. And thanks in part to the fact that I live in an area with a lot of antique stores, it's actually pretty easy to find vendors at these antique stores who sell old literature. And so just kind of that fun flipping through old books, getting that old book smell, and then finding a couple here and there that are just a couple bucks, it works really well for me. Another important thing from that first video to mention here is that word antique. I don't know if there's actually if the experts have broken down the eras of book history, and once it hits this date, then it is considered antique. For myself, just to make things simple, I chose the date 1946. So anything 1946 and backwards is, for me, considered antique, and so it's part of my collection. Once you hit 47 and it's part of the baby boomer generation, I've made exceptions because the thing itself, what the subject matter is about, seems really interesting, so I'll buy it and just put it somewhere else on my bookcase. But for it to be a part of the antique Christian literature collection, it has to be 1946 and backwards. And again, in that first video, I highlight a lot of the other books that are in my collection already, that some of my favorites, my oldest book so far, things like that. So talking about the two that I've picked up since the last video and into the end of the year, I don't recall where I got this one, but this is Help for the Tempted, parentheses, and that means all of us, end parentheses, by Amos R. Wells. I don't remember where I picked this one up, but I absolutely bought it because of that title. It's Help for the Tempted, parentheses, and that means all of us. It's that parentheses part. It just kind of, it's a very serious book, don't get me wrong. It's very serious subject matter that is being written about there, but there's something kind of tongue-in-cheek to me about the parentheses and that means all of us part. Let me flip through here a little bit. If I remember correctly, this book is copyrighted 1903. Yes, this is a second printing, first printed in 1902, second printing here in 1903. And by 1903 standards, this book is in amazing condition. Look at that spine, first off. Look at that. The binding is really good. There's no pages looking like that they're going to slip out. Everything is still held together really well. The pages are not even all that like discolored or anything. This is like this book is was kept in really good condition. Again, I can't remember what shop I picked this up from, but the previous owner and the shop itself did an amazing job keeping this book in great condition. Also, let me just hold this up. I love this is how like each chapter is formatted where the first word of the chapter, the first letter of the first word has that super fancy looking font, and then the first letter of the first word of every paragraph again is just like this ginormous letter. It's an interesting, I haven't gotten to read it yet. A lot of these honestly I haven't gotten to read yet. These are just, I'm in just full book dragon mode here of just like hoarding because I want them versus reading them. Some of them do actually sound interesting and would be on subjects I would care about. This one is a pretty short read, so there's a good chance I might even flip through it for that. But just like an amazing, well preserved copy. I am very surprised. I was thinking about this as I was preparing for this video. I'm very surprised. It's very common to see CGC and PSA, right? Like I'm very familiar with that again from like Pokemon trading cards, card collecting, and then comic books. There's like, grade 10. I have a 9.7 or 8. I don't remember of Civil War issue 1. So I I'm very familiar with that kind of stuff, and you can get like anything graded and put into those plastic cases anymore. You can even get like video games and VHS tapes now in those plastic cases. I don't know if I have ever seen like a book. I don't know if I've ever seen a book in one of those plastic cases, which I think is very interesting. I don't know if there is a grading scale, regardless if it's in a plastic case or not. I don't know if there is a grading scale for these, but man, it just going off of my comic book knowledge, this is like a 7.9, maybe an I don't want to go higher than that. I want to go into an 8, but like again, I cannot emphasize enough like how well preserved this book is, and I'm sure now that I've said that, I've probably spoken getting those getting books in those plastic cases and graded. Let me know in the comments what you think about all that. I know that in the VHS collecting community, that is like such a hot button discussion. Kind of, it's a whole thing over there. This next one is called the Divine Library of the Old Testament by, let me open it up. This one is actually in a little bit rougher condition, so that's why I'm trying not to like flip through it too much. The Divine Library of the Old Testament by A.F. Kirkpatrick D.D. So I'm thinking that's a Doctorate of Divinity. This one was copyright 1910, I believe. I'm trying to find it now. Again, this one it's a little bit, it's not, yeah, 1910. Copyright 1910. It's 7 years younger than the other book, but it's in kind of rougher condition. The spine is really good. Check that out. There's a random piece of tape up here at the top. What was that? Back top right corner, random piece of tape. I don't know why. It's a little, you can see it's a little rough for wear around this part. And there are some sections where it's like all the pages are intact, but it looks like it's starting to like separate a little bit from the binding. But kudos to the previous owner of this book. It is underlined. That one, the first book I have here, I did not see any markings in it. This one does have some markings in it, but they did an amazing job. Like, must have been using like a ruler and a protractor or something to make their underlines in this book. I don't read. I know who owned the previous copy. There's a nice little stamp here, or owned the previous copy, owned this previously. I'm not going to say their name. I'm assuming they're not alive anymore, but MD, that's Maryland, right? This book is all the way from Maryland, I guess. It's actually, I know for a fact it's all the way from Pittsburgh because this one I remember picking up at when I was visiting my in laws. They're about like an hour away from Pittsburgh. And so my wife and I did a little trip down to Pittsburgh for just kind of like an afternoon there, just me and her. And our son stayed with our in laws for the afternoon. And we stopped at the shop was called Vintage Max, which kind of sounded a little bit more like a vintage clothing store to me. Maybe that's because of like TJ Maxx or something, but it was called Vintage Max. And the bookshop was no bigger than like my kitchen and living room put together. It was a very small, very well kept, had quite a bit of new literature, especially independently published literature. And then just I managed to find my way to the resale antique book section and was able to find this one. I so that, and like I said, that was in Pittsburgh or like a suburb right out of Pittsburgh. But shout out to them, nice little shop, great owner, enjoyed it. I guess if you're in that area, go visit, pick something up, and tell them some random guy on YouTube sent you. Uh, but yeah, really enjoyed the shop. Nice little pickup there. Again, I think I paid like $5 or less for this, and yeah, happy with it overall. In pretty decent shape. Um, Other than, like I said, some of the pages on the inside are still connected, but it's starting to split a little bit. But that's all two blues, two blue books to add to the shelf. At some point, maybe I'll take a picture of the shelf itself and insert it into one of these videos so you can just kind of see the lineup there. But thanks for watching. If you hung through the whole video, thanks for watching. Make sure you like this video, and probably by this point, the link to the other video, that the first one I did on this subject, is probably on the screen. So check that out if you haven't yet already, and I'll see you in the next video.